you made this statement, and I was
Mm-hmm.
listening in the back, and you said it is easier to become smart than to become wise.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you break that down for us?
Because, I had a room, I mean, both these rooms, at one of them, I said, you're maybe the smartest room, the most intelligent room I've brought together. But you're not necessarily wise. And because one of the things that happens is that intelligence can almost override wisdom. People think you're wise because you're smart. And you can outsmart a lack of wisdom. But when you're running on your intelligence without wisdom, it's like running down a mountain and having an avalanche behind you trying to catch up. And you are running hard, but you never took care of the wise part. So you just keep making choices where the avalanche gets worse and more powerful and more powerful. And before it, you know what? You are covered in deep snow. And because of the choices you've made. And one of the hardest things in the world is to realize, wow, this other guy is not nearly as smart as me. He's not as intelligent, doesn't have my IQ, but he's so wise. And that if I would just humble myself and learn from this person, I could glean so much insight to how to live a more whole life. I did a little survey. I've done it for years. I asked people to imagine the wisest person they know. And then I asked them, is the wisest person you know the most educated person you know? Usually about 1%. So I said, so you can be highly educated and wise, but it's probably rare. And then I ask them, is that person the wealthiest person you know? And that's usually about 1%. Okay, so the wisest person can be the wealthiest person, but that's also very rare. So now, the person that you imagine to be the wealthiest person in the room, are they the person that you would go to for relationship advice? Because they seem to be able to create relational health. And 99% of the room raises their hands. You can't always define wisdom. You can always identify it. And it's like, I don't know what makes a person wise. I know what wisdom looks like. And I find it's really odd right now. Somebody's telling me about, they paid $100,000 to have this woman who's a marriage expert come into their event to talk about how to have great relationships in marriage. And she's never been married, and she's never had a sustained relationship with a man in her entire life.
Or a woman or anyone?
Anyone.
No, okay.
No one.
Okay.
And when they said, hey, wait a minute. And in fact, the guy paid her $100,000.
But he never Googled her? He never asked?
His partner wanted to bring her in.
Okay.
And so that's why they brought her in.
Okay.
And then they said to her, wait a minute, how are you the marriage expert, the relationship expert, when somebody began asking her, have you ever been married? No. Have you ever had a long-term relationship? No.
Man, I could do this.
And
pay me $100,000. I'll tell you all the reasons
why. And when she started asking all these questions, the person asked her said, it's really obvious you've never been married. And it's really obvious you've never had a healthy, sustained relationship. You know what her answer was? I'm like Phil Jackson. I can't play basketball, but I can coach it.
But Phil could play. Phil just couldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that. Okay, finish the statement. You can outsmart a lack of wisdom, but you can't
outrun it.
Ooh.
It will catch up with you eventually.
Wait, can you say the statement and keep going?
Yeah. You can outsmart a lack of wisdom, but you cannot outrun it. Because eventually the avalanche you're creating from lack of wisdom will catch up with you.
Okay, talking about avalanches, I have never been in an avalanche, but I have been completely submerged inside of snow.
That would be terrifying.
And I remember I think it was 10 years ago, you had tickets to Sundance.
Yes,
which
that's
is
right.
in Park City, and it's a film festival in Los Angeles. And I was a film student, and I had just gotten out of college, and I was working for you, and you offered it to me and the editor that was working for you as well. I guess the vintage, the OG Austin St. John. And his name was Stephen Yao. And you were like, hey guys, like I have 2 tickets. I have a bunch of movies.
And we love Stephen Yao.
Yeah, we love Stephen Yao. He's editing films now. We love him. And you guys should just go and take my tickets, go see a bunch of movies, call it work, whatever. And I was like, yes, let's go. So we flew up to Park City, drove up to Park City. And the last day of the festival, we were like, let's go skiing. We've watched so many movies. We can't do this anymore. Let's go skiing. So we skied and it was empty. And we had downloaded the little app and we had done something like 60 runs in a day because the mountain was completely empty and it was just dumping snow. And it had dumped snow the entire night before, which is like the best thing to wake up to because you're like, it's all going to be powder. It's going to be fresh. And we were going down this like black diamond and he's on a snowboard. I'm on a ski and he's much more advanced than I am. And we get to the bottom and he just starts taking off. And if you know anything about snowboards have, you know, a larger plane or base, right? So he's able to sit on top of the powder a bit easier. And he's maybe 50 yards ahead, maybe like 40 yards ahead. He's far enough ahead where he's having to yell back and he's like waving his arms and yelling as he's like gliding across this like bottom of a black diamond. And it was fun because you're going super fast down this black diamond at the end and you're like, this is an open field and I'm just gonna shoot across it. And what he was saying is, don't fall, don't fall. And I'm like, yeah, no, yeah, of course. Don't fall. And I'm like, yeah, of course, don't fall. And as the moment that I'm looking at, I'm trying to figure out what he's meaning. What he was trying to say is that it's super deep and it looks like it's flat. Don't fall. Because he can see that there's two other guys off in the distance that have like dug their skis in and went under. So
my gosh.
Yeah. And so the moment he says it, I take my mind off of it. I'm not paying attention. And I just dipped my skis in and literally like a cartoon, just went deep inside of this thing and I fall out of my skis and I'm completely submerged in snow. And though it wasn't as dramatic as an avalanche, I remember sitting there going, I feel helpless. I'm trapped. My arms are like stuck. Snow's packed in around me. And I'm like having to like, you know, do the thing. You get your poles out, you start scraping everything around you, creating space for your face and like literally climbing your body out. But I couldn't get out because my skis were stuck underneath and I couldn't get back on my skis. And every time I did it, my skis would literally sink because it's one thing to have momentum across a flat plane, but another thing to just sit on top of fluffy snow.
How did you get out?
He literally had to come.
Oh, so he came back?
He literally trudged all the way back, pulled me back out, and then we just walked all the way across this huge field. And it was one of the interesting like metaphorical moments of my life, realizing that, you know, you can try to escape it, but you can't outrun it. And you have to pay attention and make sure you're not just this little gnat that keeps driving me crazy.
But that's because without wisdom, you don't have a foundation.
Right.
And it's like snow that looks like it's solid, but it's just waiting for you to make the smallest mistake and it just swallows you up alive.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about in that group setting was, well, we actually never even got it in the second iteration of it. I just gave up, redirected, moved in a different direction.
Right.
But the only thing that actually develops wisdom is perseverance. It's endurance. It's going through the gauntlet. It's not experiencing the pain. Pain does not make you wiser. And you
would think so.
You would think so, but we have proof. In fact, one of the great conversations, and that was one of the things we had to talk about, was someone was asking, or making a statement that you have to hit the bottom to learn. And I would say I've spent my life trying to help people not hit the bottom to learn. That for me, even as a dad, it's like when your kid has to hit the bottom, that's when it's really painful.
Yeah, but I had a bad moment last night. Can we talk about that? You want to talk about that?
All right, you had a bad moment.
Well, one thing we talk about, you talk about being responsible for making sure people don't get to the bottom.
Yeah.
But you talk a lot about this idea of human agency.
Yes.
And you talked about it in the mastermind, and you've talked about it with me.
I'm going to talk about it a lot more.
And human agency is this idea where you take responsibility for your own life.
Yes.
But why is human agency so important?
Because when you lack human agency, you become a victim.
Human agency is so important. Why? Can you do that?
Human agency is important because otherwise you become a victim. You live life passively and let things happen to you rather than make things happen. It's the whole idea of, today is going to be a good day as opposed to I'm going to make today a good day.
I love that idea. I love that concept.